in hundreds of languages all around the world. So in 1965, Srila Prabhupada, carrying out the order, the request of his guru that he had originally received as early as 1922, if I get my years right, when he first met his spiritual master, he said, please spread this message of bhakti, this message of Krishna all over the world. Prabhupada was married at that time. It wasn't possible for him to take that up and immediately, but he really took it to heart. And after 40 years of raising a family, being a successful businessman in India at that time, he took the order of sannyas so he could fully dedicate himself to the mission of his spiritual master. So during that time, he was publishing magazines and trying to support the mission of his Guru Maharaj in India. But then in 1965, at the age of 69, after having translated the first 3 volumes of the Srimad Bhagavatam, or the Bhagavad Purana, which is said to be kind of like the graduate study of the Bhagavad Gita, then he felt he was ready. But he was a sannyasi. He had no money. So he literally begged free passage on a freighter ship, not a first class. Some of you probably, for health reasons, I'm sure, travel first class when you sometimes travel by flight. He wasn't even in the cargo of an airplane. He was on a cargo ship on a ship. It took some 50 days to cross the ocean. He was at that time, he had his 70th birthday. I won't embarrass you and ask you to raise your hand. Is there anybody here who's 70 or older? But we know even at the age of 50, that would be difficult. What to speak of 60, what to speak of 70. So he crossed the ocean at that time, came to New York City, went to went to Pennsylvania, Butler, Pennsylvania, not a thriving metropolis. It's known foremost as the place of where they created the Jeep. We all know in terms of 21st century culture how important the Jeep is. And it was before it was a Chrysler product. Maybe it's important now. Some of you may own a Jeep. This is the original Jeep. That's what Butler was well known for. That's where Prabhupada landed. And I'm sure many of you, or some of you, your parents came here, similarly had one contact that landed someplace, but there was a family there and people knew where you were and there was a support system. Prabhupada had no support system. Sometimes you hear it said he landed with only $7, which is true. Who would cross the ocean, go to another country with $7? But that's only part of the story. He had $7 in rupees. In 1965, you couldn't change rupees. So he came literally penniless. On the boat, the captain was kind enough to purchase one of his set of books that he brought. He had 3 chunks of his books. The captain brought a set of books. So technically, he had $15 that he got in exchange for a set of books on when he was crossing over. So he went to Butler for about 30 days. That's the only sponsorship time he had. And then again, with no support, he went to New York City. And he just started. He knew a yogi there who allowed him to stay at his place. And he just started his preaching. And then very soon after, he went to the Lower East Side because he was realizing a lot of the young people are the most attuned and open to hearing about Vaishnava culture, Vedic culture, yoga, meditation, Hinduism, etc. So then he started an ashram on the Lower East Side in New York, a single elderly gentleman. And slowly, one at a time, some young people began coming to be with him. After a few months, he went to San Francisco, started a second temple, from there to Montreal, and he immediately started sending his young followers all around the world. My wife was 16 years old, if you can imagine, when she became a follower of Prabhupada. Prabhupada was speaking one day, and he said, I want all of my disciples to go and open temples. Okay, Anuja, you said yes, so your daughter's 16, okay? Yeah, I have a 16-year-old granddaughter, so the thought of my wife being that age, hearing this from her guru, was a little like, whoa, that's a stretch for me. He said, I want all of my disciples to open temples. And she raised her hand and she said, Prabhupada, even the girls? For those of you we talked about last night, you said this temple, we've got a woman temple president, a woman chairperson. Anuja was telling me she's very inspired by the leadership roles of this temple. This is following in Prabhupada's mood. Prabhupada's response to her when she said, even the girls, Prabhupada, they call him Swamiji at that time. And he said, yes, why not? Even the girls. Of course, he was very careful to make sure that his female disciples were all taken care of and protected and all of that. But the idea of empowering women was very much part of Prabhupada's mood when he came to the West. So he sent disciples all around the world, to Germany, later so many places, China at some point in time before, it's not an easy place now. Prabhupada Swami spends a lot of time there. But this is how the Hare Krishna movement started. Before he passed away, just 11 years later, there were 100 temples. And he translated so many books today. There's 600 million books in print now in over 100 languages. Because the ISKCON Society has taken on this move that Prabhupada gave us to try to spread this knowledge. He told all of us, Krishna's been very kind to you. Now you just try to share that. And he said, I have no qualification. A very, very humble person. When you consider what he accomplished, very humble person. People would often glorify him. Swamiji, you've done so much. Prabhupada, you've done so much. He would say, actually, all I've done is sincerely endeavored to satisfy the order of my spiritual master. If there's any credit, it belongs to him. So in 11 years, he traveled around the world about a dozen times, opened 100 temples, translated so many books, and the societies continued to grow. So today there's about, I have numbers in my mind from 2016, which was the 50th anniversary of ISKCON, so I have to kind of update those from some of the publications. But there's 110 vegetarian restaurants affiliated with ISKCON around the world. There's over, as I said, 600 million books in print. There are approximately 650 temples and thousands of smaller groups that get together on a weekly basis. So these are just some of the accomplishments that Prabhupada had and that the ISKCON Society is trying to carry on. And I'll just end with this one thought. I was speaking with one of our doctors earlier who was inquiring a little bit, how did I get involved in this? And my story is not so important, but I think maybe the mood of my story is important for all of us. I got involved because as a young person, I could see there were so many problems in the world. I was studying philosophy and social science, and I was asking one of my professors one day, there's so many systems. We've studied Karl Marx. We've studied Locke. We've studied Hobbes. We've studied Rousseau. We even studied Machiavelli. That was a choice I was not too attracted to, his ideas. But of all these different philosophies, each of them have some idea how society should be organized. So let's discuss which of these. They all have a set of assumptions in the beginning. Some of you had studied these teachings. They all start with a set of assumptions. People are naturally at war. Therefore, we need a capitalistic system to put boundaries. People are naturally divided by classes. Therefore, we need communism to get rid of it. So I asked my one professor, my favorite professor, I said, these assumptions are the most important part. Let's discuss the truth of those assumptions. Then we'll understand how to organize a society so we can be better people. His response to me, which led me to the Bhagavad Gita, he told me, quote, we are not here to discuss truth, end quote, which from a liberal education might make sense, but for a person looking for something to give your life to, it didn't make a lot of sense. Because I was looking for something I could give my life to that actually could make the world a better place. And that's the purpose of this temple and the purpose of this community. As flawed as we all are individually, just as all of you, I think all or most of you involved in the medical field, you're doing that because you want to make a positive contribution to the world. And at the same time, from the medical friends I know, oftentimes you do your very, very best and the patient dies. Or do your very, very best and there's still politics in the hospital room and there's still some things that you don't feel quite right about. We feel, and the Gita teaches, because we need an underlying spiritual foundation. And then our medical practice and our economic efforts and our political efforts can all really affect the world in the most positive way. So that's the answer to how I get involved in this. And we thank all of you for your participation. And again, we really see ISKCON as not that we don't say we have all the answers. We say we have humble contributions to make to help Chicago, help the society at large do better and to help connect with Krishna. And that's our effort to try to do so. And we're deeply grateful for all of you for coming here and helping to assist us and helping you to achieve that shared goal. So thank you for that. And I think I've been asked to introduce our key speaker now. Is that correct? I saw him here, but I just want to make sure the timing is right. Okay, good. I'm in communications. They teach us to follow cues. So she's the president. I have to follow my cue here. So it is my honor to introduce my very dear friend and godbrother, His Holiness Ramapada Swami, who is of the Sannyas Order of Life. And Maharaj has been a member of ISKCON for about 5 decades, one of the earlier disciples of Srila Prabhupada. I'm visiting with Premananda and Narendra Prabhu, and on their home they have a lot of photographs of Srila Prabhupada walking when Ramapada Swami, looking slightly younger than he does today, but pictures from 1970 or something like that. And that Maharaj has been a member, was a member of the governing body commission that I'm currently serving in for many, many decades. He was actually the chairman of that organization. And I was remembering this morning when Maharaj finished his term as the chairman. I have a very vivid memory of all of the members, about 50 people in the room at that time, standing up and offering him a standing ovation out of gratitude for his expertise and his heartfelt leadership. That's on a global scale. Then here in Naperville and Chicago area, as Premananda mentioned, he's also been extremely instrumental. He's had oversight responsibilities, been traveling and teaching here for 30 years plus. So he's well known to a lot of members of the community, and we're all very, very indebted to him. He just as I don't think we often mention this about him, but it might be of interest to all of you, that he was in a pre-medical program when he met Srila Prabhupada, and he laid that aside, and all of the important contributions that he could have made pursuing a medical degree, and the important opportunities that he would have benefited from pursuing a medical degree, and he set that aside because he wanted to dedicate himself to spiritual practice. So he's one of you. He just took his route a little bit differently, and although he's not, I think he's probably a little better than most of you at answering some spiritual inquiries. He didn't go far enough. When I say he's one of you, I wouldn't necessarily recommend any of us ask him for medical advice. He quit that a little early, but there's a little win-win in this relationship that can happen here today. So Maharaj, please come up and welcome. Thanks for being here. You'd all please stand and welcome Maharaj. We would appreciate that.
Welcome, Maharaj. Hare Krishna. Like Aditya Baba Prabhuji just said, Maharaj is a world-class spiritual teacher and educator. I'm going to just repeat a part of the background. He's been involved in global ISKCON for many years as a leader, was the president for several years, and still very instrumental. We are lucky to have him here today. If you look up the highest levels of spiritual speakers in the whole world, Maharaj would be one of them. He's going to give a spiritual discourse today about the role of physicians in spirituality, and that'll be followed by a question and answer session, and then lunch. Please, Maharaj.
Questions and answer session is much more engaging, so I'll try to speak less and encourage more discussion. There are certain roles in society. You, as physicians, have one of them, where very naturally people look up to you because their well-being is in your hand, and they're coming to you because presumably they have confidence that you can help them. But just naturally, there's like a teacher or a parent or a head of state or something. Doctors are persons who others look up to. And that is a platform. Of course, you have your professional ethics to abide by, but it's your platform, it's a platform for you to significantly impact not only the wellness of your patient, but the spiritual wellness, and I'd like to address that. The relationship between healthcare and spirituality has been around since the beginning of time. Within the explanation of the manifesting of the Vedas were manifest even before there was a universe. Brahma manifested the Vedas from his four mouths, etc. And Ayurveda is one of those disciplines. Of course, Dhanvantari came and expanded it further and expounded it further, but it's within the Vedic text. So spirituality and healthcare are existing since the beginning of time. Our Vedic picture is from Bhagavad Gita. There's a gross body, and there's a subtle body, and there's the soul. The word Atma can mean any one of those three depending upon context. So the spiritual conception of healthcare is where there's proper care and attention to each of those dimensions of life. You know what's wholesome, and you abide by that which is wholesome for the body and for the mind and for the soul. And that's the spiritual conception of healthcare. Similar idea is, in a negative sense, is taught in the Bible, which I grew up with. What you probably heard this phrase before. What profiteth a man if he gains the whole world and loses his immortal soul? Or in the language of Bhagavad Gita, na jayate na mriyate va kadachin nayam bhutva bhavita va nabhuya ajo nityam shashvatoyam parano na hanyate hanyamane sharire. You're probably familiar with the verse from Bhagavad Gita. Essentially teaching the functions of the senses to experience objects outside the body. Those are all temporary, and they're driven by the same language as Bible, the immortal soul. Without the immortal soul, the machine doesn't move. And again, the spiritual conception of healthcare is proper care and attention to all three of those dimensions. A related point is a thought about from yesterday. One of the questions from yesterday, the group that was here yesterday, was what's the comparison, similarity, and difference between religion and Sanatana Dharma? I've given more thought to that, because it's, I'm accustomed to hearing Prabhupada speak on that, which is the answer that I gave. Here's another answer. The English word religion is a kind of generic translation of the word dharma. Dharma means religion. So the English word religion comes from the Latin word religare. It's a verb, and religio is the noun, and it means to bind or to bring together. And there's a connotation that it's done with reverence. Similar Sanskrit word is yoga, to link, come from the dhatu, yuj, to connect. Same meaning. So, and so the teaching of Bhagavad Gita in relation to dharma or religion or linking or binding, there are stages, and the topmost of all those stages is Bhakti Yoga. You probably know from Bhagavad Gita, the last verse in chapter 6. Yoginam api sarvesham, then the mind. Madgatein antaratmana, then the body. Shradhavan bhajate yomam, connecting the body and the mind to the source through loving service. And medical profession, I mean, my hat's off to all of you, because I'm more than indirectly aware, quite directly aware of the kind of sacrifice it takes to become a doctor and then to live the lifestyle of a doctor. You're servants of the whole world. The whole society is depending upon quality doctors. Life of sacrifice for the purpose of serving others. And again, from that position of being such a caregiving person, others look up to such persons, not just for the well-being of the body. Here comes the next topic. What's the cause of unwellness? You know better than I. And here's one teaching that I learned from Srila Prabhupada. It was a karma question. Prabhupada, supposing two people are exposed to some illness, one contracts the illness, another does not. Is that due to karma? Answer. If your resistance is low, you'll contract the disease. If your resistance is high, you won't contract the disease, or less chance you'll contract the disease. So it's not just the immune system, because the immune system can be stressed out by lifestyle. I take treatment from allopathic doctors as needed, but the primary care that I receive, that I look up to, is an Ayurvedic doctor. Just sharing with you something you already know, but just the context is different. The Ayurvedic doctor that I had been seeing my life was at the edge of falling off a cliff, and he pulled me back, and so I'm deeply indebted to him. He took me through, he was building a clinic, he took me through the 4th floor, 3rd floor, 2nd floor, ground floor, and then we were in the basement where he gives classes. So he said, in this place, I can bring people to the place where their wellness is ensured, but if their lifestyle doesn't change, they'll be back in the same place again in the course of time. So lifestyle in our modern times is very stressful, very toxic, etc., etc. I don't need to elaborate because you are quite familiar with all of that. So the spirituality is essential for people not just to become well, but to stay well, or to have the resistance strong and overcome illness. I'm going to tell a little story, because I'm told stories are nice to listen to and easy to understand the point. In Europe, there was a young man in his 30s who had an alcohol problem. And in the course of his roaming the streets, he met some devotees that gave him one of Prabhupada's books in his local language, Sri Upanishad. And on the cover of Sri Upanishad is a picture of Vishnu with Anantashesh behind him with the hoods. And he didn't read it, he put it in his bookshelf. And his alcohol problem got worse and worse, to the point where he was living alone, and he tells this story, and I'm not probably telling it like he would tell it, but it was the time of death. And in retrospect, it was the Yamadutas, but two very fearful looking entities came into his room. He was alone, and they had ropes. They were going to take his subtle body and soul to the bad place. And he panicked. And when he panicked, for some reason, he turned to the bookshelf, saw the cover of Sri Upanishad, listen to this, and the jewels and the hoods of Anantashesh started to flash. And his eyes were fixed on the form of Vishnu and Anantashesh with the jewels flashing. And the two entities, Yamadutas, saw his eyes looking at the form of Vishnu. And they stopped. And they spoke to him and said, "You've been very sinful, and you deserve the worst punishment, but your spiritual life has now begun. So you better get something like this, you better get your act together and become clean." And left. Boy, did he read that book. And in course of time, in the book was an address of the local center. He visited the local center. He cleaned his life up, and he became an initiated devotee that is now distributing books. The point is, from inner well-being, the physical well-being can follow, or say it the other. When there's lack of inner well-being, then outer well-being will follow. Now, it's certainly possible. I'm going to tell two more stories. certainly possible for somebody who has inner well-being to get a disease. One person I know of, I don't know the person, but I know of a nice woman from Bombay. Her name was Kunti, and she was diagnosed with a very severe type of cancer. I don't know which type. And she was given by the doctors, you have 1 month to live. She ended up living for 6 months. In the course of the 6 months, you can, as physicians, you can imagine her body deteriorated. And she was emaciated and thin and could barely move and barely do anything. But she expressed, because of this condition, I'm able to hear, unlike I was able to hear before, with such clarity and such affection for the message that's being delivered. She was experiencing a spiritual happiness within that was helping her transcend the pain of having cancer. I don't know what it is. I have friends that have had cancer. I'll tell another story. But she was blissful and even said to the people around her, I wouldn't trade this situation for anyone. Now, the pain is easily transferred, or you can give it up. But the message that I spoke on Friday evening, Mana Krishna Niveshayat, from the Bhagavatam, Narada Muni to Yudhisthira, fix the mind upon Krishna. Mana Krishna Niveshayat. Somehow or another, fix the mind on Krishna. So she was feeling blissful. I mean, the body was painful, but she was feeling blissful. And when she left, just a couple months before she left, she was in a wheelchair, and she saw some people that were in the hospital beds hungry. She requested the opportunity to cook for them. I was cooking for them. And they were completely satisfied with not just the cooking, but the love and devotion with which she was acting. So when there's an inner contentment, you can deal with mind and body problems better. I'm going to share one more. This is, I'm looking at Anuttama over here because he knows. Bhakti Tirtha Swami was an African-American person who lived in Cleveland. He grew up in a ghetto, without details. It was during the time of the civil rights period, Martin Luther King period. So Ivy League schools were giving full scholarships to bright young men from the ghettos. He got a full scholarship to Princeton. He graduated valedictorian of the class and was president of the class, his graduating class. Bright, brilliant. And his career ahead of him during those times, the Martin Luther King era, would have been skyrocketed career. But he read Ishopanishad, the same book, and he came to visit a temple and gave his life to Prabhupada. Even when he went back to Africa to preach in Africa, they made him a king of one of the, I don't know what, someplace in Africa. He told me it was really dangerous. I got out of there as quick as I could because you become king in India, in Africa, and you're dead. Because there's another king that wants to become the king. He prayed to Krishna because of his intense compassion. Please transfer the sufferings of all living entities so that I'll be glad to accept their sufferings and the reactions of their sins. Please relieve them of their suffering. Sure enough, he contracted a type of cancer that resulted in tumors all over his body. His collarbone broke because one of the cancers was just breaking his collarbone. He had one of his legs amputated. He had cancer in his groin, cancer in his neck. I mean, because, like a football, a baseball was shown. How much pain. But he was similarly transcending that pain, saying to those around him, It doesn't get better than this. Because his mind was absorbed in Krishna. I'm giving these stories just to illustrate it's not just notional, it's modern time, where when there's an inner happiness, again, as medical practitioners, causes of disease, of course, they're out there, but something that magnifies the chances of contracting a disease is the type of lifestyle that people live. A lifestyle that's filled with stress, anxiety disorders. You tell me, is it one of the fastest growing fields in medicine these days? Anxiety disorders and medications dealing with it and so on. So what's the solution? And my feeling is, as I was introduced as a person who kind of took a different tour on a detour on my medical career plan, I see that the teaming up of persons that are very focused in the spirituality and those that are focused in ways that you're focused in medical career, we can help one another, or say it stronger. We need one another. And the more that there can be a connection with those that are being looked up to in the medical field because of your expertise and your dedication, etc. Making your spiritual connections stronger will help the people that you're trying to treat not only become well, but stay well. I feel that. So let us help you and you help us help, because it's those who have compassion, those that have spirituality have compassion. To be a medical practitioner, it's not just about money. It can't just be about money. It's got to be compassion for the people, for the persons who you're serving. And then, let the circles expand, because the lack of wellness is expanding. The need of spirituality is increasing, even more so. And then it extends to nature, the world around us, and the persons next to us, or our neighbors, and those that are on the other side of the neighborhood. And the circles of compassion naturally expand. So that's my little thought on the connection between spirituality and medical practice or healthcare practitioners. They're separate fields of the same function. This focus over here and that focus over there, but they go together. And I'm really glad that you're participating in specifically helping this temple, or whatever, you're wishing it well, or whatever the dynamic is, because we're in the boat together. Human form of life in this present age, we need to help one another and make that religion or rebinding or yoga or linking with the Supreme more effective, because it's the holistic picture. It's the body, but without the mental well-being, without the spiritual well-being, the physical well-being isn't going to hold. So those are some thoughts on the topic. Now, I hope I hit the topic that you wanted me to speak about. Yes?
You did, yes, sure.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Maharaj. I'm going to invite a few people from the audience to further elaborate on the topic. I'd like to first invite Dr. Bharat Barai to the stage. He's another gentleman who needs no introduction. Dr. Barai has been a pillar of our community since probably I was born, and still is, and an established, very reputable oncologist from Indiana. Thank you for joining us today, Dr. Barai.
Pujya Shri Maharaj, Anuja, this topic for a allopathic physician who is an oncologist, hematologist, is always intriguing. What's the relationship between a disease that a patient suffers from? Some of them terminal diseases, and the patients die from that. What is the role of immune system? What is the role of spirituality that these patients have to suffer through or help them through during this time? Yes, there are diseases that are easily tackled and people don't worry about it too much. If they have high blood pressure, take the pill, go about their life. If they have diabetes, they might take pill or insulin, whatever might be needed, take care of it. But when they have serious disease like cancer, always they worry about, the first thing that they worry about or talk about or think about is going to be cancelled in life. I'm going to die. And this is when many people become more spiritual, start thinking about the relationship, and the question arises, when I treat the patients, yes, about 40 to 60% in a particular cancer might get cured, or whatever might be the number. Well, why is it that those 40% get cured and other 60% don't, or vice versa? And during that time, their own attitude, their own thinking, how much does it help? If they have more positive thinking, they have more spiritual thinking, does that help their immune system fight off the cancer? Now, the relationship between the immune system and cancer was thought about for a long time, but in last 4 years, several drugs have become available. Some of you might be watching their ads on the TV, that these drugs, they are not chemotherapy, but they affect the parts of the body's immune system and try to stimulate the immune system to try to fight off the cancer. So this is a very intriguing area. Spiritually, we think that yes, person's spirituality will certainly help heal. How exactly the molecular part of it will happen, still we don't know. We hope someday we will know. There are many things we don't know. But we know that the immune system has something to do fighting off cancer and many other disease. And hopefully someday we will know the positive thinking, how does it affect the spirituality leading to fighting off many disease or succumbing to many disease. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Barai. Next, I'd like to invite Sonal Gupta, Dr. Sonal Gupta. Sonal is especially special to this temple. She's the second generation in her family who has been committed to this temple, a practicing physician and very active member of our community here. Welcome, Sonal. Okay, please.
Thank you for your kind words, Anuja. Thank you for those wonderful, insightful words. Thank you so much. Welcome, everyone. My question is more about how do we encourage our children when there's so much information and misinformation about religion in general. How do we encourage our kids to embrace spirituality, whatever it may mean to them?
The parenting question. It's in the top 5 of questions. We touched on this like maybe 1/3 of yesterday's discussion, because any responsible adult has that concern. I don't have children, but I have so many children that I care for. I'll just mention some principles. This means create an atmosphere, an incubation chamber that's wholesome. Not push, but just a good, wholesome atmosphere that inspires growth of spirituality. Modeling it, speaking it, not pushing it, just modeling it and being it. Second is friends. Friends that are wholesome. Because everybody knows, I'm not a parent, but bad association can corrupt a good person, good child. So parents are very concerned who their kids are hanging out with. So having wholesome persons who your child or children can be with is important. One of the reasons for having community, spiritual community, where the families are wholesome, the children of those families are wholesome, so my children that need friends can be with wholesome friends. And then a third, Nutama touched on yesterday, he used the word fun, but something that's inviting and encouraging. I'm going to share something. Where's Sham? Okay. Yesterday there was some discussion that I became inspired by, so I checked it out. And there's a really nice devotee who is prepared to have a summer-long, Saturday, Sunday class on Ramayana, because everybody likes stories, and he loves Ramayana. So we were like, he was going off about how, we could do this and that. Very enthusiastic. He's done it 4 or 5 times in his community in St. Louis. So offering to our community and other temples, so we can bond with other temples outside of our own, space. Because kids like stories, and through the stories you can learn things. And it's like ice cream or a smoothie. It's really yummy. But you can learn. And my experience is kids learn. And once they learn, they can tell you the whole story. You just show them a picture and they can tell you the whole story. Take it from me. Kids learn stories and they learn lessons from those stories. It's just natural. Culture is through Ramayana and Mahabharata and Bhagavatam, and that's spiritual culture. So where there are opportunities to learn from those persons who are really good with young people, and that's 3 principles. Then a 4th principle is mentorship program. I've learned this from practical experience, and then I read it. It's like, it's a rule. When there's, at a certain stage, children look to their parents as the authority figure, and there's kind of this teenage rebellion thing that goes on. So it's really
I'm
good.
in that phase right now.
So for you, Premananda has a son. His name is Mukunda. Mukunda grew up, but I knew him from the day he was born, and then now he's married and has a child. So he and his good friend are teaching Bhagavad Gita to I just asked today, teenagers and high school kids. That's their age group. They've been doing it for 3 years, and it's fun. And it's from young people that understand what they're going through. It's not like, the authority mom and dad. It's somebody that's like them, a little older, but they understand the language of younger people, and so that's an option. But in general, if you can find someone who they can relate to that's a little older, and it does not to manage their life, but they can go to them with anything, and kids have anything. So and they can share the anything, and they don't judge them. They maintain confidentiality, but they can guide them. And somebody besides their friends know what's up because they're opening their hearts. So that's something that's a fourth principle. The mentor guide of someone that's young, who they feel comfortable with, they can look up to, they can open up. The rule is, unless the young person is at risk, like physical, health, safety, risk, otherwise it's confidential, unless there's permission from that person to disclose. So those are four principles that I think are very helpful. And here's a fifth one. There's a parent who has a teenage son, and he has decided one of the gifts that Krishna has given him is to work with young people, because lots of young people go to him because he's the kind of person that young people like to go to, including his son. His son tells him everything. So he went to the trouble of becoming became a certified, whatever it's called, family counselor, something like that. And I can give you his contact information. And he just can guide you, then your children can hang out with his son or what. I don't know what he does. I didn't ask him. It's not my field. Family counseling. Parenting. Those are 5.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sonal. Thank you, Maharaj. And thank you for bringing up the teenage Bhagavad Gita classes of Mukunda. My daughter participated in it. And like you said, he was someone she could relate to. Doesn't relate to me or my husband too closely. But it was impactful for her. If you ask her like one name from the temple, probably the only name she'll remember is Mukunda, because she came to the classes and connected with him.
And they're both musicians, and all kids like music.
True. Yeah. Next, I'd like to invite Dr. Gopalka and Namrata ji, both of whom have been involved in the
I can hear you. I got it.
One is spirituality, how it can help the physicians themselves so that they can be a better physicians out of anxiety.
Got it.
How ISKCON, one is spirituality, and how ISKCON can help in getting this spirituality to these physicians.
Well, just feed off the previous question. you have children, and if your children are doing better, you'll have less anxiety. So we'll help look after your children so you'll have less anxiety. That's a serious one. It's a serious one. I mean, yeah, it's a serious one. So you're a physician, so you must know the volumes and volumes of studies that have been done by Harvard Medical School and all kinds of entities, the value of meditation, the alpha waves and so on and so on and so on. Meditation is only a short period of time in the course of your day. However, the cumulative effect of meditation over extended for many, many, many days and years. I mean, you probably heard it. I've been practicing bhakti yoga for 50 years, over 50 years. And can you imagine every day for, it used to be 2 hours and now it's 3.5+ hours every day, just doing one thing. Striving to bring the mind to a place of stillness that's absorbed in transcendental sound. And do that once and do that every day, it has a cumulative effect. A spiritualizing, you could say, effect, but reducing the lower modes of nature effect, and then that carries over to the rest of your day. And so I learned this from college, and it's continued since then. That was 50 years ago. I'd like to tell anecdotes, but time doesn't permit. I'll tell one. I was in pre-med student, so my studies were up to here, and I began chanting. I was chanting 8 rounds a day. It took me 1 hour. And I was being encouraged, chant 16. How am I going to do it? I've got, the mountain is too big. But somehow I just decided, you know what? I'm going to try. So I jumped in the pool. And I found that from chanting the 2 hours, my energy level went up like this, so my sleep went down like that. It went from 8 hours to 6 hours of sleep per night. I wasn't trying to reduce sleep. It just, I was so energized. And after doing that chanting, I found that the homework, it took less time. So now I had time to read Bhagavad Gita, just from this one thing. And the stress level, of course, this was some years ago, a few years ago. But that the principle is the same principle. When the modes of nature go up, the passion and ignorance influences on the mind and the body, because the neurological system is impacted as well. When your consciousness is higher, then those influences diminish, and then you have greater clarity to do your job better. I would say, I don't know how people who don't chant do it. That's my perspective. Or say it positively, by sound vibration. It's just a principle. Consciousness connects with sound vibration. And when that sound vibration is a spiritual sound vibration, that's where your consciousness goes. Cheta darpana marginam. The mirror of the mind becomes cleansed, and those stress factors reduce just naturally. You don't have to cross your fingers and hope. It's verified by so many experiments with people that do meditation. And of the forms of meditation, sound meditation is most effective. The Hare Krishna mantra, there was a study done at the University of Florida some years ago of different mantras without going into it. The Hare Krishna mantra was most effective at reducing stress, tendency for depression, and the sense of well-being. That's with the assistance of the statistics department to do that study properly. I can send you the little summary of that study if you like. But so it's ISKCON it's wellness for the practitioners too, I guess. I haven't been asked this question before, but it's the same principle applies. I get it asked all the time by young people, all the time. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Gopalka, and thank you, Maharaj. One of the main things that attracted me to ISKCON was it wasn't more religious, it was more spiritual. And as I learn more about it, that just reinforces what it's about. Okay. Next, I'd like to invite Dr. Priya Gambhir. Priya, like Sonal, is the second generation of her family to be involved in our temple. She was primarily involved in the Chicago temple, but I'm very happy that you took the time to come to our temple too. Welcome.
Puja. And I would like to thank you very much, Maharaj, for being here today.
Because then I can hear you better.
Yes, I'll follow the CDC guidelines as well. So,
Outdoors especially.
yes, please accept my humble obeisances. Hare Krishna, everyone. I'm so happy to see all of you here today. I appreciate you taking some time off of your busy schedules and coming here. And Anuja, thank you very much for having me here today. I wanted to just ask Maharaj, in this time of suffering for the whole world,
Yes.
and the calamity, the disease, a lot of us are shaken up as physicians, as well as, people turn to us for how to remain calm during this situation. Especially, a lot of them have lost faith in God because they say that we're praying, but nothing is happening. So, first of all, they ask, how do you explain this? How is the world suddenly, coming to an end or whatever with all these people dying? And what can we do to console people and help them while they're suffering so much when we ourselves are also shaken up, even though we have faith?
Well, I can give a 3-minute, 5-minute answer, but it's a deep question that deserves more than a 3-minute, 5-minute answer. And because you probably know the ropes a little bit in ISKCON, there's a devotee named Rambaru, who teaches a seminar on this called Karuna Care.
Karuna.
Check it out.
Okay.
And she teaches, she trains devotees how to help answer this question. So people in the medical profession having to answer this question, as do I. She's a really good resource for you to learn from, because devotees that extend, you can say pastoral counseling, not medical counseling, but pastoral counseling. She's a great resource. But so that the 3-minute answer is acceptance. That is, in life, there's I've given an 8-hour seminar on this topic for college kids. They're called The Art of Meditation, Overcoming Negative Emotion, because it's a big deal for college kids. I mean, for everybody. But so I'm just speaking principle. Acceptance. There are things in life that just you can't do anything about. And that doesn't make it okay. But when you're walking along the path of life and something unexpected happens and it continues to happen and it becomes a chronic something, you step back, and it's outside, there are forces outside of our control that we can't do anything about. You accept it, then you consider what your options are. This is like stress management 101. What are your options? And for people that are facing those situations, be really careful. The ounce of prevention worth a pound of cure kind of message. Be careful that you don't also become a victim of the same thing and cause grief to others that you're lost. So So there's the acceptance of the reality of the situation. And then comes one of the messages that I shared earlier is the lifestyle of people in general, the greed, the non-acceptance of the resources of nature as something that's divinely given and meant to be used in service to the divine. The failure to recognize that causes disruption within nature and within our experience of interacting with nature. So let us realign ourselves with what to do. Realign yourself with that from which everything comes and the purpose of everything. Now, your one part of your question is people have lost faith in God. Well, the position of God is not the order supplier. The position of God is to reciprocate with living entities who have a desire. What about the desire that's unwholesome? And there's a lesson for desire that's unwholesome for the society in general. I forget her name. The daughter of one of the Christian evangelists when 9/11 happened, and why do bad things happen to good people, kind of a message. And when we behave in relation to each other and in relation to nature in such an unwholesome way, we have to expect it. Mm-hmm. So let us do some course correction in our life, our personal life. We can't do what everybody else is doing, but in our personal life, live by values that are wholesome values, lifestyle values that prevent unwholesomeness in how we interact with each other. That's the course correction. If you don't have that course correction, you'll get crushed by the circumstance and the grief connected with the circumstance and so forth. That's a short answer. It's a big topic. It's an important topic. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Maharaj. Thank you.
Thank you, Priya. Would anyone else from the audience like to ask a question? Dr. Brahmgupta, would you like to ask a question? Thank you, Maharaj. Maharaj is here for some more time, and if anybody would like to talk one-on-one, he's available. I'd like to ask Chamji to give a brief presentation about the scope of the new temple.
Thank you, Ranjaji, and thank you all. As you can see on the left side, the food is getting ready. So while that setup is done, I will take 2 minutes to quickly walk you through about our project. Am I audible? So some of you, I took you that side for a quick tour, and as the time permits after this, I'm more than happy to take you a quick walk on the temple. But in summary, this property we acquired about 10 years ago. And again, thanks to Maharaj, who was instrumental in everything for us to get this property. And 3 years back, we decided to build and develop this as a new generation temple as such. So the goal is that whatever we do, think in the 50 years down the line, like how this society will grow, what will be the needs of society. And keeping that in mind, we put our project together, and the place we are sitting right now, this was all the swamp. So we developed this as our phase 1, which is we put this parking lot, we brought the electricity and the water and many other things, site work. But right now, as I'm talking to you, we are in the phase 2. So phase 2, we are building a temple, which is self-sustained infrastructure where our deity will be installed. There is a very painful thing I want to tell you, like a lot of devotees here will live a big pain. And the pain is that if you go inside the altar, our deity is not installed. So for ISKCON, the deities are real God. It's not like murti. We don't use word murti. We call deity. And the deity is there, then God is there. So that sincerity we got to have. Unfortunately, this church structure doesn't allow us to serve the deity in that respect. So it will be a huge disrespect to deity. So we have not that installed. So and it's a very painful process. Like we worship Krishna and we don't have our deity. So now we are committed to get this phase 2 done so that our deity will be installed. So this is about 26,000 square foot infrastructure, 2 floor. The first floor is, the second floor is deity, and first floor is the kitchen and the community hall. Because as we live here, we need community needs. So that's the wonderful thing that's coming up. And the goal is that to be done, we want to get it completed by next year. Again, my desire is to get it done and do God Purnima, the deity installation. Let's see where, if not Ram Navami or something like that. But we are definitely committed to get that done. So that is about $4.5 million, this current project. And then the phase 3 is taking this church building out, because this is not a good non-sustainable building, and then we want to extend it and add more space, like the guest house and more classrooms for kids. So that's the plan for the phase 3. Combined, this is going to be a $10 million project. Dr. Barai, I remember 2-3 years back when I came to you, you inspired me. अरे छोटा क्यों बना रहा है, बड़ा बनाओ. So we had with that vision, we continued, although we didn't know where to do, how to do, but it turned out to be the nice one. So thank you for that. And in this process, so there are many things that we do, but one thing I really want to be extremely humble, and because I have some of you who are the committee members, so we form a committee. And the committee, their job is to guide us and inspire us, because we don't know community, we don't know how to do it. And a lot of people, including Dr. Anja Gupta, in fact, she was one of the first one who initiated. So with her, then I have Dr. Brahm Gupta ji, Dr. Ajay Gopalka ji, Akhil Gupta ji, Akhil Chawla ji, and many others who are here. They are, in fact, Seema Gupta ji has been, he's there. So a lot of these committee members are helping us to grow and build this temple. But one of the committee role is the chairperson. So we need a leader who can guide us and nurture us. And we have been struggling. We had some good leader. But right now, we have exceptional leader, and the leader is none other than Neelam Dwivedi ji from Oak Brook. So, Neelam Dwivedi, can you please come forward? So, she knows doctors by heart, because entire family is doctor and friends, relatives. So, she has been very instrumental, inspirational for us, and since she started, things has been very different. Same way, 2 days back, we had this fundraising drive, and we were really struggling how to make our number, and we have a big number to make. Dr. Agadi was here sitting, and he said, all right, I will do it this one. So we were very humble to you, Dr. Agadi and family, for your kind suggestion. But whenever we talk something like this, the one thing that we cannot avoid, Dr. Gupta don't want to hear his name, and I'm sorry, Dr. Gupta, you can beat me afterwards, but I have to call out your name. He is our everything. He is Godfather. He is that. Whenever I feel like my hopes are diminishing, he calls me. Syam, kya ho raha hai? Karo. Okay, Dr. Gupta, we do it. So thank you. I'm sorry, I still took your name, but he's so kind, humble, always standing behind us. With that, I will let Neelam Di to speak a little bit. Amjad, you want? Yeah.
Yes, I just want to say a couple more things about Neelam Di. Neelam Di is a very prominent businesswoman from Oak Brook. She's been with our temple not too long, just 1 year.
1.5 years.
1.5, you feel every day. But the strides we have made in that 1.5 year have been exceptional. I try to learn from everyone the skills that I don't have. One of her strongest skills is fundraising, and her method of fundraising is exceptional. Very direct. Neelam Di goes up to the person and says, you're going to write me a check of 2,000.
Please don't do that.
And they say, okay, Neelam Di. No, I mean, I have observed this, and it's magical how it works. You go up to people, you tell them to write a check, and they write a check. That is the best method of fundraising. So I'm going to ask you to say a few words.
Thank you, everyone. Now, Sham and all the previous speakers have already spoken. I do not want to repeat the same thing. But I would really like to thank Maharaj Ji, Anuttama Das Prabhu Ji, for taking time to grace this occasion. He enlightened us today, and they keep enlightening us. Special thanks to all of you who took time to come. I wanted Shyam not to mention Dr. Gupta because I wanted to mention. He took the words out of my mouth and put it in his mouth. We could not have done much without Dr. Gupta's help. With his encouraging, and any time that we have needed any kind of help, he's the first one to just say, what can I do? And we always let him know what he can do. And he has done that. We cannot undermine the help of all the volunteers and the devotees. They have worked tirelessly to see how we can build this temple. And when you see someone like that, you do nothing else but to help them out, realize their dreams. And I think their dream is to see a beautiful temple right here. And that has become one of my dreams also. Sometimes I just think, what can I do? And then I start thinking about everyone that I can get the help from. Temples are the places, not only for the worship, but it also is a realization for our kids, our grandkids, our generation, the future generations, which can keep our faith, religion. We have talked about faith and religion, but there has to be a reminder. And I think temples are the best way to preserve our culture, remind us as to how we can preserve our culture. And we definitely want all of you to be part of this temple so that it can be a reminder for your children and grandchildren who would say, my papa, my grandpapa helped realize this temple. They were instrumental. And that's what I'm looking forward to. When my children, my grandchildren will say, oh, my nani and dadi was very much helping over here. So I would like all of you to be part of this. Engage yourself. Help us with your ideas, because anytime we are short of ideas, we would like brainstorming, and we would like to pick everybody's brain here to see what can we do to ensure that this temple is built. I would not take much time because the food is getting ready, and we just want participation from all of you, which can encourage us to build this temple. Hare Krishna, may Krishna shower all the blessings on all of us always and keep us all safe. You all have done fabulous job in keeping anyone that has come your way that could be saved to save. Let Krishna save all of us. Bless all of us. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nilamdi. Once again, she is the chairperson of our committee. My humble request to all of you, please join our committee. Dr. Marwa, I'm waiting for you. You have told me you will join in some. Anyway, I'm keeping jokes. I really look forward for you. Please join us and guide us. It's not a huge commitment. It's once in a month meeting that we do. Many times we do virtually. So, and meeting happens on Saturday or Sunday. So you can contribute quite a bit, and it will be our honor to have you all. So with that, we want to conclude this program, but please don't leave without the lunch. And first of all, Maharaj, once again, thank you so much for traveling all the way and spending 3 days with us and nights. And a guest, thank you so much. It was not an easy thing for us to get all of you from different parts of Chicago, in fact, Indiana as well, to come together for this event and make this successful. It's a huge encouragement for all of us to see you all here, and anything you need, please let us know. At the same time, there are in your we have a gift bag for you. Please take it, and then in case you want to participate anyway in temple construction, we have a flyer which have a catalog of various items. So please see me or anybody, and any question you have, we're more than happy to help you. At the same time, I will give you a walk to our next temple if anybody would like to. With that, I really want to thank you so much, and thank you everybody. Sri Vallabha Prabhu is sitting, it's not a very extraordinary job, and Prabhuji, Premda Mataji, and everybody, audio, video, prasadam. So with that, we would like to conclude this program. Please take the lunch, please take your gift, and bless us, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you. Hare Krishna.